What's up, everyone? Welcome to ShockCast, episode 30. Joining us today, we got Giuseppe and Azario, and we are talking, I believe it's Western and Eastern games, not Western versus Eastern games, mind you. They both have their fine points. Giuseppe, how you doing?
Ouch.
Yeah, you got
You do
a
that
little
every time.
excited there.
For them,
Yeah.
it's not as
You
loud.
really like it today. All right. I guess you really like the topic. I'm fine. Just
Western
see-
and Eastern.
You guys,
I just have two less eardrums.
you guys see, they actually have a little me muted down because I could change that setting in OBS. You guys have to hear me full volume. Sorry, Giuseppe.
That's nice.
Oh,
I guess.
well, thank you.
right.
All right.
So
go.
nice of you. Hello everyone.
How was
Sorry,
Japan?
I can't really dialogue anymore because my ears are busted.
So how was Japan?
Japanese.
It was very. I would imagine.
Yeah,
you make-
unfortunately, I'm back. I mean, I was very fine where I was. I would have stayed there another couple of years if I could. Yeah, I couldn't. But yeah, I'm gonna go back soon. I hope.
I support you moving there. You'd have better internet.
Yeah, that's true. I
That's
mean,
true,
I
yeah.
in the hotel where I go. I mean, even crappy hotels, you have a 100 up and down. Here, my internet is absolutely shit. And sorry for the French.
Azario, how you doing?
Pretty good. Hanging out. Really good. We got a lot of stuff coming up.
A lot of good
for the
games.
site.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, let's dive into
let's
things.
move with a like clip because I want to go to bed. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's laid over by you. Okay. Well, first off, thanks for everyone who's in here live right now. We record this every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/DualShockers live. We're going to be here next week. The following week, I'm on vacation. People are at GDC. We're probably skipping that week. But we'll see what happens. We'll keep you guys updated. We'll give you guys an official announcement next week. Before we go into the topic, what are we playing right now?
Are
Who are
you
we starting with?
I'll start. I never start.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
I'm playing Halo Wars 2.
Woo!
It's a lot of fun. See, I haven't played too many of these type of RPGs. I think I played a lot of StarCraft and Warcraft when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I've just this last year gotten back into.
Wait. You just say that this type of RPG?
It's like a
Strategy RPG.
strategy RPG. It's like an RTS.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But anyway, I got back into it lately with Champions of Interior, which was not really good. And then I went back to playing some of the old games and realized that the genre is still good. I was just playing really bad ones, and I can't give any kind of judgments on it yet because of embargo, which is up at 3 p.m. 3 a.m. Eastern. So if you wait long enough, you'll see
That's
the
so
review.
weird. Leave it to Microsoft to do their midnight embargoes.
That said, you could tell by the way I'm talking about it that I'm enjoying it as a blanket statement.
Shut up.
No summary judgments,
Mark.
but I'm enjoying it.
Shut up.
He hasn't eaten all day. Leave him alone.
I haven't. No, I'm on a diet. If you guys can't tell, I'm down 15 pounds. I'm drinking like these green smoothies. Awful. Don't do it. All right, Azario, what are you doing?
You're doing it for the good of your health.
Yeah, bullshit. I just want my chicken tendies. All right, so what's up with you?
I've been playing a lot. I've like passed 35 hours in Digimon World Next Order. Jesus Christ, I didn't know that game was gonna go on forever. That said, my review should be up tomorrow, so be sure to check it
a lot
out.
of reviews out tomorrow.
Yeah. Also, I'm reviewing Berserk, and I can't say anything about that, but when the game's out, you'll see it. I'm also reviewing Story of Seasons, but I can't say anything about that either. But
Shut up.
We're saying a lot of things that we shouldn't be saying. Okay,
we're saying
Giuseppe.
a lot of things. But,
Giuseppe.
Okay, so I have been playing quite a bit of Fire Emblem Heroes as a time waster. I guess it's good. That's what it's good for.
I think you
Well,
like
it has good heart.
the game.
I can talk about that because I'm not reviewing it. It has good art. It's a good time waster, I guess. And I mean, I was on a lot of trains in Japan, so I needed something to play.
You just bring your Vita. The Vita goes everywhere.
No, the Vita is too big for
The
trains.
Vita has a long battery life. That
Yeah,
OLED
and it's big.
screen.
I mean, it's this big. It's too big for commuting. But yeah, and I've been playing Carn Exiles a bit. Finally managing to get it because in Japan I didn't have my PC, so I didn't have a chance to try it. And I finally got it, and I'm going to check it out. I've been playing some NiOh more NiOh, which is
Yeah.
like awesome. More than awesome, it's really good.
I suck at it.
But you suck at everything. That's not a problem. I mean,
I think after the tutorial level, I got to the first boss and I was done. I was like, nope.
first
After
boss.
my ninth try, I was like, this isn't gonna happen.
You mean in the first boss in the Tower of London?
No, like after that tutorial boss,
okay.
you go to the beach and you go to the
That's
ship.
not a tutorial. It doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I don't
true.
know why people call that a tutorial level because they doesn't like tutor you into anything. Just throw you into the fray and makes you die a lot. But
Yeah. How did you enjoy have you changed weapons or dabbled in other main weapons? Because I'm using the dual swords right now and I really like
dual
them.
swords are dual swords are that's probably why you suck because dual swords are like not for like new players. You should probably focus on the katana for the beginning just to learn the mechanics then doubles because
I'm all
dual
about
swords
the-
are fast, but yeah, they're not exactly the weapon I will advise to someone that's struggling, I guess. Anyway, and then I've been playing some Black Desert Online. I've been dabbling a little bit more on Final Fantasy XIV. I've come back after hiatus. It's to play the new story part. It came out with a late update. And I'm also refreshing because on Friday I'm going to Frankfurt for the FanFest. So
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
are gonna see some lots of coverage about that from Frankfurt. We're gonna have some nice stuff coming there. Well, they're probably gonna announce the last class. It's a job that's coming with expansion, which everyone knows what it is already, because it leaked in like 20 different ways already. But you know, then it's gonna be. We're gonna pretend to be surprised. Yeah!
Shock.
Oh my God!
Where is
Shock.
the FanFest at?
Name.
Located at?
Eh?
Where's
Sorry?
the FanFest located at?
Frankfurt.
Oh, you just said that.
Oh, you want to know the street address?
No, on Friday I'll be going to the NIS America press event in San Francisco. So
What do you call
Lot-
it? The NS America?
press event.
The NIS America.
This
Nissa, just Nisa.
What's an NS? NS is like it's like NASA.
NIS America.
Okay, that's gone. So what you gonna do? You can say anything about it. So shut up.
Yeah. Like
You're like under strict embargo.
expect good
All right.
news that day.
All right,
Both of us.
moving on. In the Twitch comments right now, Lane56 says he's playing Danganronpa on 2 on Vita and Don't Starve Together.
Woo!
Great combination, Danganronpa. I can't wait to play that.
Vita
in March.
hype.
Also, VG Junkie says he's just on NiOh and reading every article related to Nier Automata. And along with that, The Last Guardian, Yakuza, Zero, Gravity Rush, basically every great game he's hitting it up.
Oh, speaking of great game, I actually tried Senran Kagura Beach Slash, which is kind of a tongue twister, but
Okay.
it's actually very, very fun. I just played it for like a demo for like 20 minutes
Because
in
in
Tokyo,
Japan,
but it was
peaches,
really nice.
peaches represent boobs, right?
No. Boobs aside, the Senran Kagura series always has nice gameplay, and this one is actually really, really fun to play. It's like super fast, It has like some really interesting mechanic. Like finally, like they actually revealed it today, but it has a mechanic. Then when you like get someone wet, that it doesn't only get their costume like transparent, see-through, which is like eye candy, but it also like give them an effect that they have like a boost that they can shoot without consuming any water. So basically, what happens is that if you shoot someone too much, they will become more powerful, but then they can do it to you, and you will become more powerful. So the game has these really like comeback mechanics that really works well. I
Sounds
mean,
dynamic.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot fun. I mean, I had more fun with it than with Overwatch. Just saying.
So it's like, from what I'm getting out of it, it's kind of like a sexy Splatoon.
Yeah, it is like a sexy Splatoon.
Okay.
But more fun than Splatoon.
Well, Splatoon is pretty sexy in itself.
No, please.
I think you have really
Get
really
off
affected.
the internet.
What's that squid
Okay, rule
fan
36.
rolling
Rule
in? I was
36.
all about it.
Rule 36.
All right.
Censor him.
All right. You're censored. We support censorship. Only for Azario, though.
Azario needs him.
Let's go straight into the topic. The topic is Western and Eastern games. So I guess what we've had a lot of great Eastern games come out already in the beginning of the year, and the latter part of 2016. So I think, Giuseppe, what you were hoping to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to kind of highlight the differences between the two and
Or like
why.
a difference of culture in
Yeah.
game development between not just not just East and West. East and West is a generalization because there is like if you think East, you think Japan normally, and if you think West, you think America. But there is like a lot of in-betweens between them. Because of course, a lot of like European game developers have their own culture. Like if you look at developers like Quantic Dream, for instance, it has a very different culture compared to Naughty Dog, for instance, and it also expresses it very clearly in their games. Also, games like I don't know. Any games like Conan Exiles, which is developed in I think Sweden. Funcom should be Swedish or Norway, but some Norse. Or if you look at another very big example, which for me is East, but it's it's not as East as Japan, is CD Projekt with the Witcher series, which is a very strong game, very rooted in Slavic culture, and it's also in their development. You can see it a lot. Even if they have a very international team lately, they still have quite strong culture that is shown in their game. And also in Asia, there are different cultures as well. Like if you look at Korean culture, for instance, very strong. Now Chinese culture and Chinese development culture is starting to rise up. Well, it started quite a while ago, and what is starting right now is Taiwan as well, which is kind of similar to China, but in development culture, but not exactly the same, because it's influenced more by Japan. Taiwanese people want to be Japanese. Young Taiwanese people.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that we're now finally seeing Chinese developers emerge after that ban was lifted. You had like games like Koi and Candleman that just came out on Xbox One. I don't know if it's out yet, but
oh yeah,
it's out.
They have a very that's China. That's like actual China. I mean, some people are going to be like angry if we talk about two Chinas, but we don't care because we don't talk about politics. But the simple fact is that if you look, for instance, Taiwan is growing a very big development culture because now they have even a big game show. Like Taiwan Game Show is getting really big, and it's showing that their development culture is growing and showing a lot of local games, which are very specific. Like they are a mix of Eastern Asia culture, like Chinese and Japanese culture. So they have a very strong flavor in their own. So unfortunately, not all of them come out in the West, but hopefully we'll get more, especially since PlayStation tends to like push a lot like local developers. But talking about China, for instance, we have we have quite a lot of indie developers as well that are coming out. So yeah, it's becoming very interesting and very nuanced. And what we want to talk about tonight is not which is better between like East and West, but more like the value of this difference in difference in culture and how the very different ways of making games enrich the industry, because we are looking at an industry that sales-wise is definitely dominated by Western games at the moment. But if you look beyond the AAA Western game, which is still great because, of course, every culture has value, but there is a lot more to look at, and I think gamers should try to make an effort to look beyond the AAA and the promotion, because we have seen absolutely awesome games that are not the usual AAA that didn't get promoted enough, and they're getting kind of overlooked. Like the first example is Gravity Rush 2, which finally is a very strongly culturally influenced by Europe, especially by France, at least in its like looks. But it's a very strongly Japanese game in basically everything else. And Sony is guilty, in my opinion, to have basically sent it to suicide without almost any promotion.
Unfortunately.
Which is really sad. I mean,
Well,
it's
then
an awesome
now you look at games like NiOh, which would usually come out to Koei Tecmo doing their PR and pushing the game on their own.
Not much.
And then Sony taking it over under their wing, and like then you start seeing it like on ads on IGN. You start seeing NiOh just blow up,
which is fun. I mean,
yeah,
which is fun. But
if that game didn't have that promotion, I don't know if it would have done as well with the people who only.
Oh, it definitely wouldn't have.
Well,
AAA,
NiOh probably was picked up mostly because first of all it was an exclusive, and secondly because Sony wanted a Bloodborne 2 without having to make it, pretty much. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's strange is that they promoted like NiOh like hell. They promoted it a lot, but they didn't promote Gravity Rush 2, which is their own game. Yeah. Why? I mean, but anyway, we can like promotion is kind of a side argument, but if you look at like let's look at what makes those games unique. Like NiOh is a very interesting game because I'm talking about unique, but there is a few things that make it unique, but it's mostly a fruit of the Dark Soul current. It actually reproduces pretty much a lot of Dark Soul concepts, like really, really identically, let's say, adding to them in a very nice way.
Yeah,
so
I enjoyed the story, the inserting of the story, and the fact that the character is European in a Japanese setting, and that worked really well for the character. Like you as an outsider are now in this new setting, and now you're.
The funny thing is that NiOh is like more Japanese, and I'm not talking just about samurai, the fact that it has samurai, than Dark Souls and all the games that originated it. Because if you look at it, Dark Souls is still a Japanese game. You wouldn't say if someone didn't tell you, I guess. Like if someone didn't tell me that Dark Souls is made in Japan, it kind of will look like to me culturally it's like a Western game in many ways. Besides the Masocore thing that is very rooted in Japanese culture, like Japanese gamers like to suffer. But if you look at all the visuals and the story, everything is like rooted in a culture that I would almost say Western, which is nice to see. Actually, developers picking up culture from other sides. But interestingly, like NiOh is more Japanese because it has a strong focus on the story, which is the main difference between Japanese games and Western games is that Western games have a focus on mostly gameplay and this is of course a very big generalization. Focus mostly on gameplay and technology.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Japanese game have a very, very strong focus on the characters and the story. In fact, they have games that have no gameplay, or almost. Visual novels have no gameplay, almost, because you basically, like the most basic visual novels, have just choices. It's a choose your own adventure kind of thing,
Static
right,
screens.
Azario?
Yep.
Azario, you're the expert of visual novels. So
Yeah.
that's the purest example of how Japanese game for Japanese gamers and for Japanese developers, having a great story and great characters is enough to make a game. Right?
Yeah, and you see adaptations of like the ReZero series and everything, just getting a visual novel game, but that's okay in Japan. Like if someone took the Marvel universe and tried to just make a visual novel out of it in the West, though, it would bomb. It would.
Absolutely.
At least if it's not Telltale.
Funnily though, there are many small Western developers that are picking up the visual novel, way to do things. Like look at Truant Pixel, which is definitely a Western developer that just announced an installment visual novel. That surprised me quite a lot. Like, would you have imagined Truant Pixel, the makers of Teams Extraordinaire and makers of what was the name of the
Viva X Viva. Yep.
yeah, that's completely like gameplay based and technology based, making a visual novel for girls. But yeah,
Boys
if
can
you
play
look
it
at the
too.
yeah, yeah, I know, but I play that's fun. I play Akuoki. I also read manga for girls sometimes, so that's fine.
Learn a little thing new every day. So I got a question going off this. We talked before about how a lot of Eastern developers are being influenced by Western development and vice versa. Do you think that the country of origin is still the main focal point? Because I remember, especially when Child of Light came out, people were introducing it kind of as a Japanese RPG brought into focus by a Western developer. Same can kind of be said, I would say, even with The Legend of Zelda, especially the new one, Breath of the Wild, has that very Western edge to it. And of course, they've never really had a story. Yeah. So, what's your take on that? Is it all based on the location?
Well, it's not all based on the location, but it does matter. Like, the Child of Light was presented as a JRPG, but it was very French, in many ways. It was very Ubisoft more than very French, and that's kind of the same thing, but not exactly the same. So the development culture, I think, in many ways, still filters through. Even if you're like trying to make a game that of a genre or a kind that's more oriented from another country, your development culture still comes through. Like, it's difficult to completely ignore your development culture. Like, even if you look at Japanese games that look like Western games a lot, the Japanese the nature still come true, and the same comes from like many other games that are different. Like, if you look at the visual novel made in the West, yes, it works like a visual novel. It will pick up a lot of the tropes and the things from the visual novels, from the Japanese visual novel, but you will notice that it's not made in Japan. You will notice that it has different things, like subtle things, but it's still, and that's something, and that's awesome, because you see a new take on a genre. Even when lots of Western developers want to make JRPGs, small developers, of course, and that's awesome. Not just because we got more JRPGs, we can have more than those, but they are not really JRPGs, because JRPGs is just RPGs made in Japan. Like Dark Souls is a JRPG, even if it doesn't feel Japanese. But the funny thing is that they call them JRPG because they're trying to pick up the Japanese development culture, but they still put in their own. So we get new things. We got like a new stuff in it. Like for just to make an example, BioWare, when they're still good, no, they're guys still good, but right now they're a bit different than they were. They were very influenced by Japanese development culture. That's how their big focus on story long time ago come out. A big focus on story and characters. Right now,
Mass Effect had that. The first one had that RPG.
They felt a lot like a Japanese game in certain ways. Well, if you look at even Halo was influenced by Japanese development culture in many ways. In fact, Halo is possibly one of the most popular Western franchise in Japan because it clicks very easily with Japanese gamers. Even if Japanese gamers are historically a little refractory to FPS games, it clicks because the Japanese culture is maybe not in the gameplay, but in the story and in the characters is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to look at two series from the East. Final Fantasy 15 compared to Bandai Namco's new Tales of Berseria. And where Final Fantasy 15 really takes the Western style of huge graphics and a huge world and puts a JRPG flair on it. But then Tales of Berseria stays super true to like that JRPG. They don't go for graphics or anything or amazing looks.
The graphics of Tales of Berseria kind of suck, to be honest. But that's different.
That's going into a Tales of Berseria game. You're not necessarily looking for good colors, but I don't think you're necessarily looking for like real life graphics.
But you don't need the real life graphics. The fact is that the flow, let's say, of many Japanese developers is that even if they have the budget, because Bandai Namco does have the budget, they are not really a poor company. They kinda don't care.
Look at how many developers use the Neptunia engine. Just recycled it over and over again. And people still buy the games.
Yeah, of course. You can make that kind of visuals, but still, with good technology. Like look at Cyber Connect 2. They make very good anime graphics with much better technology, right? So it's doable. Yeah. They just don't care.
They have their priorities somewhere else.
For some reason, I'm not saying that they should do a Naughty Dog game,
Yeah,
with realistic graphics.
You have a studio like Naughty Dog who makes their own dev software, so I mean,
someone in the comments just say that Western developers have a focus on story too, citing Naughty Dog. We are not saying that all Japanese developers focus on story, all Western developers have crappy stories or no story at all. Absolutely not. We're making a big generalization, and there are, of course, big overlaps, and of course, Naughty Dog focuses on story and characters. That's doubtless. But Naughty Dog, I would say, it's not a special case, but they are different. They are at the moment they are such a melting pot of so many development culture, but I wouldn't even call them exactly an American developer. They are probably the most multicultural developer that I know in many ways.
Ubisoft's gonna fight you over that one.
Well, Ubisoft can put all the disclaimers they want on in the beginning of their games, but their games are very, 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 very French in so many ways. Actually, their games are very French, even in the fact that they put that disclaimer.
Yeah, I already started off apologizing.
That's the most French thing I can think about. But you were saying, Azario, Berseria is an example of the fact that Japanese developers in many ways don't care all that much about technology, and which is not exactly a bad thing. Sometimes it would be nice if they changed an engine, but it also suffered from the fact that it was still on PS3. which is.
Oh yeah, it did.
But I think it's time to move. Luckily, Bandai Namco just hired the maker of the Fox engine, so hopefully they will. Huh?
I said, wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So, well, just it's 1 year ago actually. So,
Well,
but
I think
of course
I think Bandai Namco's I think Bandai Namco's was already showing their differences, because even though they have a Vita version of Digimon World Next Order, it's
Ditch that Vita.
it's completely different than the PS4 version. They're both on different engines, and they both have completely different settings.
Yeah, but we can say that Digimon still suffer from being on the Vita quite a lot.
It did. Visually, the Vita version of Digimon World definitely does not look good. Even you'll read my review tomorrow.
I'm definitely not saying that developers should ditch the Vita. I love my Vita. I still use it at home because it's too big for commuting. But I use it on the toilet. Anyway, the fact is that it would be better if they made its own games for the Vita, because this making games for Vita and PS4 kind of makes them a little bit not meat and not fish,
Well, you have games like Tokyo Xanadu, which is getting a plus version on the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's still very limited.
It still does.
Have you seen it running?
Yeah.
Have you seen it running? You can plus a PS Vita game as plus. But there isn't much you can do to improve it to the level of a game that you could do if you made it for the PS4 and that's it, or like home consoles, which I understand why they do it. Which is again why many Japanese developers don't care all that much about technology, because it's okay for them to do it, because it's the graphics don't matter as much in Japan and for Japanese gamers. So if you make a game for PS Vita and PS4, people are perfectly happy about it, and and they will buy the Vita version. A lot of them.
I think the only people that are supporting the Vita in the West now are indie develelers as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I don't think there has been an AAA Vita game in the West.
Not since Freedom Wars.
Not since Freedom Wars.
Well, that's a Japanese game anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in the West, yeah.
I don't think has there ever been like an AAA game for the Vita after
Resistance,
Uncharted Gold Abyss, I guess, and
Call of Duty
kills Mercenary, I guess. But yeah, the fact is that Japanese developers don't care all that much about technology, which is good. It's their culture and it's absolutely fine.
Welcome to Nintendo.
Nice if they.
Welcome to Nintendo.
But
yeah, exactly.
But if you see,
of course,
Capcom,
there are exceptions.
If you see what Capcom and Bandai Namco are doing with virtual reality, I don't see any other studios making virtual reality games. There's tons of experiences out there for virtual reality, but those two are making the new Ace Combat and Resident Evil 7 look amazing in VR.
Those are outliers, but that's because virtual reality clicked with those studios, and I wouldn't say. Of course, Capcom and Bandai Namco, which is also the funny thing, they have the money to make technology. Same for Square Enix with Final Fantasy 15. They certainly have a ton of budget, so they can make technology. But you also see games from the same studios. So I'm saying, sorry, not studios, the publishers that don't have the technology. So it's like sometimes they say, "Oh yeah, we're making an anime game." So who cares about the technology? It's anime.
I believe that I think these Japanese developers really know how to take risks.
Oh yeah, they do.
You'll never see Naughty Dog make a bad game because they won't take that risk.
They product test like crazy.
Yeah. They'll make sure.
I'm not sure saying that Naughty Dog doesn't take risk is fair.
Yeah.
Well, when they were before, I think they made Crash Bandicoot, the racing game.
Yeah.
That was a risk, but it was a really good game.
I'm not
and that
thinking
was
about.
they were
I'm
under
not
that
thinking about
leadership.
different genres.
Yeah, I
I'm
think.
talking
Oh well,
like
Go
The Last of Us, for instance, was a risk. Was a pretty big one. Like it was a big departure from the Naughty Dog that we knew. I think Naughty Dog was definitely not sure that it would have been so successful.
that said,
Like,
oh,
yeah,
just to add to that, and inside each thing, there are smaller risks. I mean, to have the I think to go with the zombie apocalypse after zombies kind of had been worn out and they still are worn out. That was a huge risk. To go with the thing from the I could spoil things from the DLC, right? Jesus, that's so old. They've had remakes of
no,
it. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
the thing from the DLC,
spoiler.
spoiler, that is a big risk. They've taken a bunch of small risks. Maybe, when they know that in the larger scheme, I think things will turn out well. But I think
Well, yeah,
they tend to use
definitely.
a big platform to take small risks within it that do really tend to pay off. But that's because they're experts at what they do.
Yeah, but that's the good thing though. I mean, I'm actually welcoming games that have like this big difference in technology. Like if you see Tales of Berseria or I don't know many games from Koei Tecmo or GAS that have like technology is a little limited there. They still have value because they put all their soul into something else. While also, and you see that in for instance, in Western culture with games like the new Call of Duty, which unfortunately didn't really go well because they took a risk, a big one, and it failed because people want boots on the ground, Call of Duty, realism,
Yeah,
soldiers. Ah,
Even though the
so
story mode in Call of Duty is not that bad.
the story in the last Call of Duty is absolutely fantastic.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's what we see, and we see people taking risks in different directions from the whenever they are from, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
but you'll never see the way with the sales that Knights of Azure was met with in the West and in Japan too. You would never see a studio in the West give that a sequel. I've never.
yeah, but you see, Koei Tecmo is kind of special. Like Koei Tecmo and Nipponichi Software,
Yeah,
there are
because
two
Witch
studios that
Hunter
are
Knight
kind of.
did terrible, and they're giving it a sequel.
There are two
No.
studios that are kind of different from the rest, even in Japan, because they don't care about money. they, they probably, I don't know, they're funded by someone like working in a ramen store downstairs, or I don't know. But they really don't care about money. A game doesn't sell, no matter. Let's make a game that's even more niche.
Yeah, talking with some Japanese developers, I believe that if one of their games sells more than 10,000 copies in Japan, that's a success.
Well, not all of them, but
Yeah,
for
well,
This America, that definitely yes. For some
yeah,
This America,
yeah.
for Nipponichi Software, which is not This America, that's definitely a yes. Well, Japanese. This goes more into Japanese corporate culture, even more than Japanese development culture. That is something that is difficult to understand for Westerners. But like the corporate culture of Nipponichi is like almost alien for a Western businessman. Don't type Azario because we can all hear you click.
Get off your mechanical keyboard.
Yeah, because if I start doing like this, no one is going to hear anything. But yeah, they are very difficult to read for even for us journalists, because you say, oh, this game didn't sell, so they're not going to make a sequel. No, not for sure. Why would they do that? And they do, because they care about their characters, and they want to make a sequel, which is absolutely fantastic. Which is one of the things that many Japanese developers are a little bit more indie, I guess, in the spirit than Western ones. Of course, there are variations because Capcom is much different from Koei Tecmo in development culture, but those things exist and you can see them very clearly even if sometimes you can treat them because you think, oh, they're never gonna do that. That's impossible. Like, oh, they're never gonna localize this game. It's never gonna sell in the West, and they announce it like 2 days later, because no care. They're still gonna sell it, and if they sell 3 copies, it's fine.
All right, so we're getting close to the end, I think, but I got one that.
We're not.
Uh,
I still have a lot to say.
oh
You
no,
need to go to bed.
I'm not talking about end of discussion. I'm simply just talking about. We said we were going to try and keep it shorter.
No, we're not.
All right, so here
He's awake now.
we've
coffee.
woken him up. He's woke. Okay, so we've seen a lot of within the past couple of years, of course, censorship and Gamergate and all of that. We've discussed it to lengths on DualShockers on the ShockCast, but now we're bringing up Eastern and Western culture. My question to you is, how much do you think that might just be a misunderstanding of cultural norms compared to... Go ahead.
Let's look at the. I'm not talking about like that kind of stuff, like gates and stuff like that. We're not talking about that.
No.
We are not aligned with any that kind of thing. We don't. That's more politics. Let's not talk about politics. Let's talk about games. Look about 2 games. Since we're talking about censorship, which I'm not even looking much at censorship, as much as flattening of culture. Which is not just for Japan. It happens for a lot of Eastern cultures, like Korea as well. Like Korean games, when they get localized, as much as Japanese game, many people that do localization tend to flatten the Korean culture. Because the Korean culture is actually a lot more different from ours than Japanese culture. So there are things in the Korean culture, just to give you an example, which is not about games, but give you a very clear understanding of the difference in the Korean culture that there is compared to Western culture. Like kids in schools in Korea, while it's recently been made illegal, are punished with a stick, and that's a quite big difference. Like differently for males and females. Like for instance, guys, when you're a bad guy, when you're a bad student, they make you get on all fours, and they take a big stick and they beat you on the ass. So that's a big difference. That's a big difference in culture. Like this is something that really would not fly in the West. And there is so many things in Korean culture like that they reflect in their games. And we don't see it as much because it doesn't get as much visibility. But if you look at the many Korean mostly do the MMORPGs that are localized in the West, a lot of things get localized very different how they are. And this is what I call flattening of a culture. Like, and as of course the most visible example is Japanese games. Pick 2 games. They're very similar in their structure. Of course, they're little bit different in tone, but they're exactly the same genre, which is the visual novel / adventure, which is the Ace Attorney series and Root Letter. Ace Attorney has been completely flattened by the localization. They made it in San Frontopio. Like they're eating like a hamburger instead of rice balls. I mean, that's
Let me have a jelly donut.
Yeah,
I mean
that's probably the most shameful, crappy, stupid localization ever done on a video game.
Yeah, they got the 4 kids localizers after they got fired, and then they hired them to do Ace Attorney.
Yep.
And you look at Root Letter. Root Letter, on the other hand, it embraces, like the localization embraces its Japanese nature. It's not perfect because P-Cube is a small company, so their localization department is not perfect. But while it has its own flaws, it actually embraces its Japanese culture, and that is what makes, for me, and I'm sure for many others, a Root Letter, while Ace Attorney is much more famous, is maybe even better as a game. Root Letter is, I can hear you typing. Root Letter is a richer and more valuable experience because it shows me a culture that's different from mine. Like root letter, I can still hear you typing. Stop being a cam girl, please.
It's because you have headphones on.
Root letter, you played it, Azario, right?
Yes.
I don't think you played it, Luis.
No, not yet.
Root letter actually shows you a part of Japan that people don't know. Even people from Japan don't know. And it shows, but it's super Japanese. Like, it's almost like having a tour guide in the game. And that's absolutely fantastic. And you can see it in many other games. You can see it in Tokyo Mirage Session, for instance. You can see it in Tokyo Xanadu. You can see in all those games that are set in Japan, modern day, that they can go two ways. They can embrace that that whoever does the localization, you can see in Yakuza, for instance. Right? That's one of the premier examples. Whoever does the localization, they can either embrace it and give you this value added that it's also showing you a culture that's different from yours, and that makes the game better and more fun and more enjoyable if you're a tolerant person that doesn't hate a game because they have this different culture from yours, compared to games that are flattened and they don't give you anything more of the game.
You'll have a separate group of people that embrace the Ace Attorney ways of localization and congratulate it on how it handles the way that it presents itself to players. I mean, you can take me, for example, where I enjoyed Pokemon as a kid when I was 10 years old, and they had rice balls, and they called them jelly donuts. And until I was about 15, 16, I believed that those were jelly donuts and not rice balls.
Yeah, and that means you've been tricked.
Imagine when someone
you understand you've been tricked, right?
When someone growing up with the Ace Attorney series who doesn't do any research feels when they realize that a lot of those scenes and a lot of those stories, they're not real.
I played the first Ace Attorney I was pretty young, but I think anyone with the brain can understand that's not San Francisco.
I don't. Well,
you haven't met me.
there were some weird. I remember all the way back, and this isn't even video game related. I remember all the way back when I was watching the original Pokemon series, and they were calling those donuts the rice balls, and I always just assumed, I'm like, oh, they must have.
That's what I just said, Lou.
Yeah.
God, you're not even listening to me.
I am listening. I thought you said Ace Attorney, because that does happen in Ace Attorney, doesn't it?
No, that was Pokemon.
Yeah.
We have the same.
Yeah, but he's talking about the Pokemon anime.
I think he was talking about the Pokemon anime too.
We had the same childhood.
The Pokemon anime sucked, but.
But at the time, I didn't know that. Just like I didn't know the Yu-Gi-Oh anime sucked and the Digimon anime. I don't know. Does that hold up? I never went back.
Anyway, besides you two fighting because you're not listening to each other, the very simple thing is that cultural differences, like cultural diversity, is a value added to video games. They give us a window, like exactly like if you look at a very good fantasy game, it will have its own culture in the story, in the characters. They will actually make an effort to create a culture, which is what the new studio from Atlus actually explicitly set out to do, creating a fantasy world with its own culture, giving you a window on a different world. And games from a different culture give you a window on a different world, and that's something that is valuable, that makes the game more fun and better for you as an experience, because it enriches you. If you see something with your own culture, it's fun, it's great, it's awesome, but it does not enrich you. Mm-hmm. It does not give you anything that you don't have, right?
It goes without saying that games shouldn't technically. I'm not saying that games should be directly translated, because you'll have a Star Ocean catastrophe that way. But
I worked in localization when I was younger, not anime, not games, and there definitely is a way to respect the culture in a game
yeah,
without
yeah.
doing a literal translation. You can still translate things in a faithful version without being literal, with being like elegant in your target language. That's what adaptation is for.
Right.
But you can do it right and you can do it wrong.
It's to
The
respect
very-
the audience. I think that localization companies should really just. I don't, and necessarily, I don't think the people who localize the Ace Attorney games have much respect for their audience. And
They have no respect for the game for sure.
they
They think they're a lot more creative. It looks like, well, if you look at a localization like employee, basically puts himself as an author. He has no respect for the original author. Which, by the way, talking about localization employee, I'm talking about the general structure, because honestly, many times it's not the person doing the localization that does this kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the publisher that tells them to do this kind of shit. Of course, you can decide to work for the publisher or not. So if my publisher, when I worked in localization, told me to do this kind of shit, I would have probably changed job. But of course, people need to eat. So in the end, you gotta do what you gotta do. But in any case, if you look at like games like Ace Attorney as an example, it doesn't enrich you, doesn't give you anything more than you. But let's not talk about Japan only. Like, look at The Witcher. The Witcher gives you a window. It's a fantasy world, but it could be Poland in the Middle Age. Honestly, it has a ton of Eastern European country. Did you all play The Witcher 3?
Yeah.
no.
Who hasn't
You
played The
suck,
Witcher 3?
Azario. Azario didn't play The Witcher 3. Please,
I got
just
nobody
kick
got
him.
time for that.
I didn't finish The Witcher 3, but you didn't even play it?
Okay, you kick them. You both get kicked. You're fired.
I was too busy playing good games.
I was in
guys.
law school. Hey, get out of here, Azaria.
What?
All right.
Okay, no, let me finish.
Yeah.
The Witcher 3 has a lot of value in the way in which it presents the story and its characters, because it's truly an enriching experience to play a game. For me, I'm Italian, and I'm not even that far from Polish culture and Slavic culture, because the closest Slavic country is 200 kilometers from here, Slovenia. So I actually am more familiar with Slavic culture than you guys, probably. Unless you have a family that comes from a Slavic country. I don't know where your families come from.
Italy.
Oh, you suck. Just like me. But anyway, The Witcher 3 is really, really, really strong in that. And it's really enriching to play it because you feel that culture, which, of course, some people criticized, because making these games with a very strong cultural diversity, like very strong cultural print that is different from the Western one, will draw criticism, of course. People criticize The Witcher because it had no black people, because it was sexist, or this or that, which is funny, because in the middle it kind of tries to portray like a vision of the world that's different from ours. So and many people still want to apply the modern vision of the world. Like every game should have a modern vision of the world from the 2000 something, even if they're set in a medieval world from 1,000 years ago, even if it's fantasy, which is weird and silly. Why would you? My question is, why would you want all games to be set in modern day 2011? And I'm just talking literally.
Well, it's
And
game,
modern,
it's
modern
people,
Western game, modern Western. The day
It's
2000.
people wanting game developers to be diverse for the sake of being diverse. They want them.
No, that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing. Like many people that advocate diversity, like diversity of race, of color, of religion, of gender, which is awesome. I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
That's absolutely great. I mean, that's an enriching factor as well. Not saying that all developers shouldn't put it in, but it can be enriching factor as well if well done. Just look at Naughty Dog. Or many games like by Ubisoft, for instance, there are millions of examples.
It's like there's this group of people that want.
Wait. Not finished. Those people that want this, I'm not talking about just game developers. I'm talking about
Commentators.
Press. Yeah, commentators, pundits, press. For some reason, are normally the same people that not only defend but advocate the flattening of cultural diversity, because cultural diversity from other parts of the world does not fit their ideals. So that's funny because they push one kind of diversity, but they adverse another kind of diversity, which is probably more important. I'm not saying that one is not important, the other is important, but cultural diversity is probably the most important kind of diversity it is, because it makes the whole game different from our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's funny for me. For me, all kinds of diversity are important. And cultural diversity is the most important because it's a true blue added value for the whole game. And there are groups that adverse it and advocate. Like, look at those people that want diversity. Those people that very vocally want diversity are the people that defend Nintendo for censoring their game and for trying to remove most Japanese elements from their games. Or, for instance, that they are the same that say that Ace Attorney's localization is the best he's ever made.
Well, that's what I was getting at. I feel like there's this stigma on Western developers that they have this checklist of things that they need in their game. A black person, a gay person, every race. They have to touch on this issue. And the thing is that Western journalists, many big Western journalists, they push for this as well in their articles and in their pieces. And you take a Japanese game like Danganronpa 2, and there's a character that dresses up as a girl, and you realize this right at the beginning. But when Western, and I'm not going to say which outlet did this, but when Western journalists heard about this, they automatically went to the director and they're like, "So you did this because you want to bring some light on this issue?" And the director's like, "No, I did this because it went with the story." And they're like, "No, this is the reason why you did this." And the publisher, NIS America, was like, "Guys, this isn't gonna. He's not gonna answer your question." And the fact that they didn't end up running any Danganronpa 2 news, but the story that they wanted to push was this one character that dressed up as a girl, and that's what they wanted to know the politics behind that. And after they found out that it was just for the story, they dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what a terrible idea to just make it the guy that dresses a girl just because it's fun.
Yeah, or it fits the narrative.
Yeah,
or what they want to do.
Can just be fun.
Yeah, and that's what the director said. They just wanted to be fun. He just did it because it fit the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these things. I mean, there is absolutely value in expressing the want for characters of different gender, different different race, and different orientation. But of course, developers should be able to do what they want and what they care for.
Yeah, so that's why it kind of bothers me when developers who have a female-fronted game have to defend their reasons for having a female-fronted game, a main protagonist.
Not just defend. But they have to say, "Oh yeah, I want this
female
character.
She's strong and she's independent."
Right.
What if someone says that I just wanted the character that looked cute?
And they can't be flawed either, which is the other problem.
Oh yeah.
They can't be a flawed character like maybe Joel, for instance, for Last of Us. I think if they had a female lead who was like that, I think they'd hear a lot of criticism in the same way, because you can't show a flawed female character either. But
which is why I'm actually looking forward to
The Chloe story in Uncharted.
no, well, yeah, that too. But I'm looking forward more to Horizon
Ellie?
because it looks like the female lead is very flawed, and that's
Oh, yes, yes,
what's
yes.
very
Mhm.
interesting to me. Like Aloy looks like a very well-rounded female lead, which I'm very looking forward to play. On the other side, I'm also super looking forward to play Nier Automata because that's probably the best female lead I've seen in a while. And my God, they dare to make her look, so a little bit of ass. Um, but she's a strong female character with a lot of flaws. I mean, she's an android. What's more
Yeah.
flawed than that?
It's
Right?
it's a leot.
Mhm.
She's wearing a leotard. That's more than underwear.
Oh yeah, wait, they're not panties?
Oh yeah. Whoa. Let's run the story.
Well,
I-
something
I-
I just
well-
want to add is we were speaking very briefly about why we think cultural flattening may do more damage. I think that cultural diversity is more enriching. I don't know about everyone else watching this, but when I play both Japanese and Eastern and Western games, I'll play some Eastern games like Persona 4 Golden. Was the first time because I'm very deprived of Eastern knowledge. I didn't know what Golden Week was. So when that happened, I went and actually looked it up. I learned something about their culture. Same thing, even if we're talking Western culture. When I played Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, I got all into sea shanties. I mean, you hear them a million times, and then I spent probably the next week or two researching pirate culture. And that's just, I think, when it comes out naturally like that, when it sparks an interest, I think that's something great that games are able to do, that other mediums are able to do as well. But I think that at least video games have a very strong, have a strength in that respect. And I think that when developers or critics try and flatten that, and when translators try to flatten that, I think that that's extremely disrespectful.
It's lost.
in that. Yeah.
It's not just disrespectful. I mean, that's the least problem.
It's
Like
a lost art.
many people talk about respect for the original author, which is important, but that's the least problem. Problem is that it's a loss for us as gamers.
Mm-hmm.
Like even look at The Witcher again. I'm sorry if I bring The Witcher up so much, but The Witcher is a game that celebrates Slavic culture, and the people got a little antsy about that because it doesn't fit their ideal. I mean, Slavic culture is different from Western culture,
Mm-hmm.
and people got up in they pull up a little bit of pitchforks about that. But why developers shouldn't be able to celebrate their own culture, even if it doesn't introduce the elements you want? That's what makes me a little like antsy, because I'm honestly a bit afraid to see one day a game development culture that's only aligned with a certain culture of one part of the world, because it loses a lot of value. Look at Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15, you call it about a Japanese game,
Mhm.
but Final Fantasy 15 is something very special. Square Enix, especially Business Division 2, has hired a lot. And they hired a lot of development from all over the world, but especially about Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, like Taiwan. There are a ton of people that in that team that are not Japanese, which is something pretty new for Square Enix. And their development culture shines through in the game. There are a lot of things in Final Fantasy 15 that are westernized, but there are a lot of things in Final Fantasy 15 that are Japanese, and there are a lot of things in Final Fantasy 15 that are clearly Southeast Asia inspired. Just look at Lestalum. Lestalum is true and true a Malaysian city, because the game developer, well, in many ways, because the game developer that is responsible for the open world was Amster. Sorry, I'm Azmer. Sorry, one. I butchered your name. It's difficult for me. I love you. which by the way is extremely good at playing written games in the arcade. He's almost not human. If you see, he has actually videos on YouTube. He is not human. You'll see this person playing like Chatnim on those like super obscure Japanese arcade game for written games, and he's like not human. You see his hand that moves faster than your eyes. And anyway, this guy is from Malaysia, so he put his food, his culture, his the looks of his cities into the game. Probably would have looked very different if it was a Japanese development making them. Like the Stallone, if the team was only Japanese, would not have looked like it looks. And that's the awesome thing of having a team, having people putting their own culture into the game. Malaysian culture is very different from mine. Probably there are quite a lot of things in Malaysian culture that don't really click with me. Like in any culture in the world that's not mine. But I absolutely think that traveling in Stalum, looking at the food, looking at the way people behave, that was influenced by this person that was born in a place so far from mine, so different from mine, enriched me as a person and as a gamer.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, both of you guys played it, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice this?
I noticed that I noticed that there was cultures in every part of, like, you'll start off and that's that Western like kind of theme going on in that area, and you just from place to place you kind of see the difference that they had, that the influences that they had, and but that's what I kind of want from a Final Fantasy game. I don't necessarily think that a game like The Witcher could pull that off because, but I think it works with Final Fantasy, and I think it's good that they did it like that, because then you would just get the same towns in every single.
Well, The Witcher did pull it off because the expansion area is much different from, and it's completely different cultures, like very French. I don't know if there is a French developer that pushed that in Blood and Wine.
Oh yeah, that's
definitely
DLC,
a different culture there. But yeah, you see that all these different cultures, like it.
I think
Final Fantasy. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think in the end we should celebrate cultures and not try and kind of hold them back, not try and question their politics or their reasoning for doing things. I think we should allow creators to create.
And that includes American culture, by the way,
and
even if it's the dominant part. I mean, if there is a game, there is a lot of games out there that I enjoyed particularly because they are so America, fuck yeah. Like, and I'm not American. And I'm not American, and I enjoyed it because they were so drooling American culture. Like Duke Nukem. that was awesome for me, like the original one, I mean.
Yeah.
Really, like, he doesn't say it, but you could have Duke Nukem saying "America, fuck yeah" when he shoots people, and that's awesome for me. That's very fun, and maybe Americans can appreciate it a little less because it's their culture. So they're. Well, I'm not saying that Americans go around and shoot people like Duke Nukem. By the way, it was just the exaggeration of the American culture, because of course Duke Nukem is an exaggeration, but it was maybe for an American it's even a little crass sometimes, but for me it's more fun because it's so different from me, from what I'm used to, but also like things that are not exaggerated as Duke Nukem, they're very very American, and that's a value for me, and that's something I would not want to see lost. I know a lot of European people that kind of tend to snub American culture. Sometimes they say that they don't even have a culture because it's like a melting pot of like immigrants from all over the place. But American culture does exist, and it's of course a very relevant culture, and it's very relevant in the gaming development, in gaming development, because most of the AAA developers are American. And for instance, a subset of the American culture is the American military culture.
Yeah.
Which you can see in many shooters that are more realistic, like the last Call of Duty. Last Call of Duty was science fiction. but it was absolutely entrenched in American military culture that may not have as much value for someone that is familiar with it. But for me, it had a ton of value, and it made the game more enriching because it put me in front of people that thought in a completely different way compared to what I think. I come from from a military family, but Italian military culture is very different from American military culture, and I am possibly the worst person in the world taking orders. So yeah, military and me don't work.
Give them though.
Huh?
You can sure as hell give them.
Yeah, I would have been perfect for the military.
Drill sergeant.
Start calling something like that. But yeah, the fact is that American military culture is so different from me that I truly enjoy games that are like very strong with it. Possibly I enjoy it more than an American, and possibly I enjoy it more than an American that works in the military, because for me it's different. For me it's enriching, and that's possibly one of the most extreme examples of having a culture that's different from mine, because I'm very familiar with Japanese culture. So for me, Japanese games are not as enriching as maybe for other people, because I know Japanese culture very well. I've been in contact with them since I was a kid. But for other people that have not been in contact with it as much, is enriching. For me, on the other hand, a game that's based on American military culture is even more enriching, because it's different. It's something that I'm not familiar with, and well, I'm getting familiar with tons of games that are realistic. Of course, they're not exact, but it's still enriching experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure everyone has a culture in mind, like Lou has one and Azario has one, right? That when you play a game that's like entrenched into that culture, it's the most enriching experience you can have, and it's not your culture, which makes it stronger for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lou likes Nintendo games a lot, right, Lou?
I do.
Answer the question.
Lou likes Nintendo games a lot, and Nintendo games are very strongly rooted in the Kyoto culture, because that Nintendo is a very old and very traditionalist company from Kyoto. Of course, their culture is very strong in their business as well, which is why we don't understand them, which is why they do things that we're like, what the fuck?
That was my reaction to the Nintendo Switch.
The games still like bring that culture to you. So that's one of the things you see. Like you know nothing about Kyoto, right, Lou?
No.
See, but you can experience a bit of Kyoto in Nintendo games, and maybe you don't notice, but that's probably one of the reasons why I like them. Why you like them? What about you, Azario? Well, you're a weeaboo, so. I'm pretty sure there are games that are not. Sorry, go ahead.
Give me Bathing Suit DLC, and I'm good for any game.
Yeah, but there has to be a culture that's not the Japanese culture that you're very familiar with. That you can see it, and when you play games from that culture, you feel enriched. There has to be one.
Yeah, well, I think that's why I play Call of Duty and games like Battlefield 1, even though that doesn't fit my necessarily niche that I enjoy. I kind of like being connected to my own culture through those games, and so I think it's the other way around for me. Whereas I enjoy playing Japanese games and visual novels, but when I want to connect to the culture that's around me, that's what drives me to play these AAA games, which I don't usually talk about or advertise that I play them, but I do, and I'll gladly spend $40 on Call of Duty to play with my friends. Like, even though if you see like my posts are what I like on Twitter, you won't necessarily think that's part of me, but that's how I connect to my own culture, and it's exactly that's what I want out of it. And if that changed,
but that's not your culture, Azario. I mean, you're a weeaboo. Your culture is like weeaboo culture. I'm kidding.
Little weeb. I like how Lou like centers all my posters in the the Twitch chat, the Twitch.
Yeah, I mean that's the most important thing that we got on that screen. So
Well, that's not Lou. It's you that are pointing your webcam unconsciously on those things.
you could be facing the window and you're choosing not to do that. So
Yeah, exactly. But you want to see it, so you want to send the message. I'm a weeboo. Well, I mean, I have a million of Japanese figure behind me, so
you're perfect.
exactly. Like my figures got at the Bergen Bean in Akihabara. I spent like $200 for all of those. So if you go to Akihabara, you can bring in a lot of figures. Just make sure you have a lot of space in your suitcase.
Yeah,
It was almost overweight.
But speaking
Like
about
my suitcase was when I went weighed like 14 kilograms. When I come back, I weighed 24 for some reason.
about like differences in cultures, people who enjoy these games, they know when something is missing. Like in the first Mugen Souls, where the character was called bipolar, but really it was tsundere, and everyone erupted in this translation of the game because they knew the people that played it knew that culture was missing, and they felt like something was taken out of the game, and they felt hurt. And stuff like that happens a lot in Japanese games. So if culture was taken out of a game from someone who enjoys it, I think they noticed right away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If you play Tokyo Mirage sections, like you notice immediately that something is missing because it's based in Tokyo. They didn't call it San Francisco, but still they tried to take off as many things as possible from that game that were not like aligning with American culture or Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
Even the fact that oh my god, the characters are not like 18. Oh my god, let's take off those ages because my god they engage in such sexual activity, right? Of course they're all fornicating in that game all the time, right? That's right.
But yeah, so I think, well, while I don't want to cut it short, I think this podcast is getting a little long in the tooth.
Fine. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, I have an article about this coming, so I will elaborate further.
Yeah. You'll see more from it soon.
We always talk
wrap up
Eastern and Western games. We got to get back to writing reviews, both you and I, Azario. So let's talk about upcoming games coming out this week and what we're hoping to pick up. Coming out today, we have Army Gals on PC, The Wardrobe on PC. Tomorrow we have The Hunter. Yeah, it's I don't know why it's even on here, to be honest.
I think Leaf is reviewing
Leaf requested it. We didn't get a copy of it, but yeah.
Find the most obscure games and review them. He's cool. That's awesome.
I mean, it's great. It's great to do that. All right, so tomorrow we got The Hunter Call of the Wild on PC, Warhammer 40,000 Space Wolf on PC, Real Politics on PC, Tank Troopers for 3DS, and Homebound for PC. On the 17th, we have Blackwood Crossing for PC, I think PS4 and Xbox One. Also Typo Man for Xbox One. And then on the 21st, we got a ton of stuff. We got Halo Wars 2 for PC and Xbox One. Berserk and the Band of the Hawk for PC and PS4. Ys, was it YS? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah.
Ys. Okay.
Sorry.
I thought. Ys Origin for PS4 and Vita. Night in the Woods, PC and PS4. Halo Wars Definitive Edition, PC and Xbox One. And Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin? Sure, whatever. PS4 and PSVR. You guys gonna pick any of those up?
Well, I'm reviewing Berserk, so look out for that.
And you're getting.
Sorry, I spaced out.
Okay. I've already my thing's on there. Halo Wars. I've already got it. But no comments. No comments yet. Social media site and plugs. If you're looking for us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you can find us by just looking up DualShockers. Meanwhile, if you're trying to find us on YouTube, it's youtube.com/DSTV Originals. To come watch and be part of the show live and have all your comments here. We read them out. We love them. Join us every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Twitch.tv/DualShockers Live. We're going to be here next week. Once again, we'll let you guys know the following week if we're doing it. Finally, you can find our round-the-clock news coverage, reviews, features, and editorials over at DualShockers.com. Come check us out there. And that's everything. That's my whole spiel.
Okay. Yeah. Follow me on Twitter. I like friends.
Yeah. So, where can they find you on Twitter?
Don't follow Azario on Twitter because he sucks.
A lot of weeaboo stuff. I had to tell him anime was outlawed. It's a President Trump thing.
Cool.
All right. So, where can they find you on Twitter, Azario?
At Azario Says, and look out for my Digimon World Next Order review tomorrow.
All right. Giuseppe, where can they find you?
ABRIAEL, because I'm not going to say it otherwise because you would have never know how to spell it.
Yeah.
It's on the street.
No, it's just that I don't need that sign. It's like under my face in the layout. So why would I hold up a sign like a suffragette? Anyway,
our cosplay model.
And yeah, you can find me at Luke and Taldi, and I should be having a lot of reviews go up this week. We have Yoshi and Poochie's Woolly World. We have Halo Wars, and maybe some more stuff I gotta figure out if I'm playing some indie games. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Great discussion, guys.
Oh yeah, and Wade, look out for lots of news on Friday from Giuseppe and I.
No comments.
Supposed to know.
No comments. All right, let's
Stop
go into the
teasing.
music. All right, music time.